Flight 782 lifted off just before sunset, climbing smoothly into a sky painted in soft shades of orange and gold. It was supposed to be a routine flight from Chicago to Denver. Clear weather, light winds, 2 experienced pilots in the cockpit, 146 passengers settling in for a quiet 3-hour journey. In seat 14A sat a woman no one noticed. Her name was Emily Carter. She wore a plain grey sweater, dark jeans, and kept her hair tied back in a low ponytail. No flashy jewelry, no loud voice. She boarded early, placed a small carry-on in the overhead bin, and sat by the window without asking for help. She didn't make phone calls. She didn't scroll endlessly. She simply watched the runway as the aircraft taxied. When the plane climbed past 10,000 feet and the seatbelt sign turned off, the cabin relaxed. A baby cried briefly in the back before settling. A businessman opened his laptop. 2 teenagers shared earbuds and laughed quietly. A flight attendant rolled a cart down the aisle, offering drinks with a practiced smile. Emily declined politely. "Just water, please." Her voice was calm, controlled, almost too controlled. At 28,000 feet, the first tremor hit. It wasn't strong, just a shudder, the kind that makes passengers pause mid-sentence and glance around nervously. "Just a little turbulence." The captain's voice came over the intercom, steady and reassuring. "Nothing to worry about." The seatbelt sign flicked back on. But then the second tremor came, stronger. The overhead bins rattled. A few gasps escaped from scattered rows. Emily's eyes lifted from the window to the wing outside. She studied its movement carefully, not with fear, but with calculation. Then came the sound. A sharp, unnatural bang from the left side of the aircraft. The cabin lights flickered, and the engine noise changed. Frequent flyers know the sound of engines, that constant deep hum. When it shifts, you feel it in your chest before you understand it with your mind. The plane tilted slightly. Passengers began murmuring. In the cockpit, alarms blared. The captain gripped his chest. The co-pilot turned in shock. "Captain?" But the captain didn't respond. His body slumped sideways. "Captain, Captain!" the co-pilot shouted, shaking him. No response. At the same time, a warning light flashed. Engine 1, pressure loss. The aircraft dipped again. In the cabin, a flight attendant hurried toward the cockpit after receiving a call signal. Her smile was gone now. Moments later, whispers turned into visible fear. "Something's wrong." "Why are we descending?" "Is that normal?" Seat 14A remained still. Emily closed her eyes briefly, not in panic but in focus. When the flight attendant emerged from the cockpit, her face had changed completely. She whispered urgently to another crew member. One of them rushed toward the rear to grab the onboard medical kit. The lead attendant made an announcement, her voice slightly shaking. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. We are experiencing a minor technical issue." Minor. The word hung in the air like a fragile lie. The plane shuddered again. Emily stood up. The attendant immediately approached her. "Ma'am, please sit down." "I need to speak with you," Emily said quietly. "Now is not the time." "It is exactly the time." There was something in her tone, firm but not loud. The attendant hesitated. "The captain has had a medical emergency," she whispered quickly. "The co-pilot is handling it." "How many flight hours does he have?" Emily asked. The attendant blinked. "What? How experienced is he?" I don't know." Another sharp drop jolted the cabin. A child screamed. Oxygen masks trembled but didn't deploy. Emily leaned closer. "One engine is failing. If he mishandles asymmetric thrust at this altitude, you won't just have turbulence." The attendant stared at her. "How do you know that?" Emily didn't answer directly. "Take me to the cockpit." "That's not allowed. If you wait for permission, you'll be too late." The attendant's training screamed at her to refuse. No unauthorized passengers in the cockpit, ever. But another violent vibration shook the aircraft, stronger than before. From inside the cockpit came a frustrated voice over the open door. "I need assistance." That was enough. The attendant grabbed Emily's arm. "If this goes wrong—" "It won't," Emily replied. Inside the cockpit, chaos reigned. The co-pilot's hands flew across the controls. Warning lights flashed like a Christmas tree. The captain lay unconscious in his seat, oxygen mask secured over his face. The co-pilot turned, startled, as Emily stepped inside. "Who is she?" he demanded. "She says she can help." "This isn't a simulator. Get her out." Emily moved forward and scanned the instrument panel in one sweeping glance. Altitude dropping. Left engine unstable. Fuel imbalance increasing. Autopilot disengaged. She reached forward and adjusted the throttle slightly. Not aggressively, just enough to stabilize the yaw. The co-pilot felt it instantly. The aircraft steadied. He stared at her. "Who are you?" "Right now," she said calmly, "the best option you have." Another alarm sounded. The aircraft had drifted off its original flight path during the engine struggle. On the navigation display, a red boundary line blinked. Restricted airspace. The co-pilot's face went pale. "You've got to be kidding me!" Before he could respond, the radio crackled sharply. "Unidentified aircraft, you are entering restricted airspace. Alter course immediately." The co-pilot swallowed. "This is Flight 782. The radio cut him off. "State the authority in command of that aircraft." He froze. He wasn't technically in command anymore. Not with the captain incapacitated and the aircraft. Emily reached for the radio. Unstable. Her hand hovered for half a second. She hadn't spoken this way in years. "This is Flight 782, she said clearly. "We have a medical emergency and engine malfunction. Request immediate vector assistance." There was a pause. Then a new voice entered, sharper, military. "Flight 782, identify the commanding officer in the cockpit." The co-pilot looked at her, confused. "Commanding officer?" Outside the window, two small shapes appeared in the distance, moving fast. Emily's jaw tightened slightly. She pressed the transmit button again. "This is Commander Emily Carter." Silence. Not static, not interference, just silence. The two approaching shapes grew larger, sleek, angular, unmistakable. F-22 Raptors. Inside one of those fighters, a pilot adjusted his headset. "Raptor 1 to command," he said slowly. "Repeat last identification." The answer echoed again through the radio. "This is Commander Emily Carter." In the fighter jet, the pilot's breathing changed. He hadn't heard that name in years, and neither had anyone else. Back in the cockpit of Flight 782, warning alarms still blinked. Passengers still panicked, and one engine still struggled. Inside the cockpit of Flight 782, the silence after her name felt heavier than the engine alarms. The co-pilot stared at Emily. "Commander?" he whispered. Outside the windshield, two F-22 Raptors sliced through the evening sky, closing the distance with precise, predatory grace. Their metallic bodies reflected the fading sunlight, wings steady, movements controlled. The radio finally crackled. "Flight 782, say again the name of the commanding officer." Emily didn't hesitate this time. "Commander Emily Carter." Another pause, shorter but loaded. Then the voice returned, and it had changed. "Commander Carter, this is Raptor 1. We have you on radar and visual confirmation. We are moving into escort formation." The co-pilot blinked in disbelief. Escort formation? The fighter jets split smoothly, one sliding to the left side of the passenger aircraft, the other to the right, slightly behind. Close enough to protect, far enough to avoid wake turbulence. Inside the F-22 cockpit, the lead pilot's heart was pounding. He remembered her. 5 years ago, she had been a legend at Edwards Air Force Base, a test pilot who pushed experimental aircraft beyond safety limits and brought them home anyway. She had once taken control of a failing prototype mid-air and saved not only the jet, but 2 other fighters flying in formation. Then just as suddenly as she became famous, she disappeared. Official reports said she resigned. Unofficial whispers said something else. Back in Flight 782's cockpit, the left engine shuddered violently. "Engine 1 is losing pressure fast," the co-pilot said. Emily's eyes scanned the instruments. Fuel imbalance worsening. Hydraulic warning flickering. "How far to the nearest base?" she asked. "Crosswinds building at lower altitude." The radio responded before the co-pilot could. "Commander Carter, this is Raptor 1. Nearest air base is 82 miles east. Runway length 12,000 feet. Emergency services are being activated." "Copy that," she replied. The co-pilot watched her hands move across the controls, calm, precise, confident. "You've flown something bigger than this, haven't you?" he asked quietly. Emily allowed the faintest smile. Much faster. The aircraft jolted again. Cabin pressure fluctuated slightly. In the passenger cabin, fear had turned into full panic. Some people were praying, others were crying. Flight attendants were strapped into jump seats, bracing. Through the windows, passengers could see the fighter jets. Gaffs replaced screams. "Are they going to shoot us?" someone shouted. "No," a flight attendant whispered, staring at the Silver Guardian off the wing. "They're protecting us." Back in the cockpit, Raptor 2 spoke for the first time. "Commander, we heard you left the service." "I did," Emily answered, adjusting the trim carefully. "Didn't expect to hear your call sign again." "Neither did I." The left engine made a grinding sound, then flamed out. The aircraft lurched sharply to one side. The co-pilot grabbed the controls, but Emily steadied the yoke instantly. "Maintain heading," she said firmly. "Compensate with rudder, reduce drag." The plane stabilized, now flying on a single engine. Altitude, 18,000 feet and descending. Raptor 1's voice came through, calm but respectful. "You're holding her steady, Commander." "I'm not losing another aircraft," she replied softly. There was something in that sentence, something deeper. As they descended through 12,000 feet, the air grew rougher. Crosswinds hit the aircraft unevenly. The heavy passenger jet wasn't built for the kind of aggressive correction she once performed in fighter jets. She adjusted gently, calculating glide path and wind correction angles in her head. "Runway is in sight," Raptor 1 reported. "Wind 15 knots from the west. You'll feel it on final approach." The co-pilot exhaled slowly. "You're really going to land this?" Emily didn't answer. Her focus narrowed completely. At 8,000 feet, she addressed the cabin through the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Commander Carter speaking from the cockpit. We will be making an emergency landing shortly. Remain seated, heads down when instructed. You are going home today." Her voice traveled through the cabin like steady light through darkness. No panic, no shaking, just certainty. At 5,000 feet, the runway lights glowed ahead like a guiding path. At 3,000 feet, crosswinds pushed hard from the side. The aircraft drifted slightly. "Correcting," she murmured. The co-pilot watched in awe as she angled the nose slightly into the wind, a perfect crab approach. At 1,000 feet, warning chimes sounded again, low hydraulic pressure. She ignored the noise. "Focus on the runway. 500 feet. 200. Easy," she whispered. The wheels slammed onto the runway with a violent thud. Smoke exploded from the tires. The aircraft bounced once, dangerously. Emily adjusted instantly, lowering the nose gently. Reverse thrust engaged on the remaining engine. The plane roared down the runway, slowing. Finally, it stopped. For a moment, no one moved. Then applause erupted inside the cabin, shaky at first, then thunderous. People cried openly, strangers hugged. Emergency vehicles surrounded the aircraft. Inside the cockpit, the co-pilot leaned back, hands trembling. "You just saved 146 lives." Emily stared straight ahead at the runway stretching into the horizon. The radio crackled one final time. "Commander Carter, welcome back." She looked out the side window. Raptor 1 dipped its wings slightly. A silent salute. She felt something shift inside her. For years, she had avoided the sky, avoided the memories. The accident that ended her career had taken more from her than the public ever knew. She had blamed herself, walked away before she could fail again. But today, when the sky called her name, she answered. The cockpit door opened. Paramedics rushed in to assist the captain. The co-pilot was already explaining everything in disbelief. When authorities later asked for her identification, they paused. "Emily Carter." She nodded. One of the Air Force officers standing near the runway removed his cap. "Ma'am, we thought we lost you." She looked back at the aircraft, at the passengers stepping onto the tarmac safely. "You didn't," she said quietly. "I just needed time." As she walked away from the flashing lights and chaos, the two F-22 Raptors soared upward, disappearing into the darkening sky.